everybody, and welcome to another podcast of Ljubljana Talks, right here, live from IMEX 2025. And here today with Gorazd, we have Melissa Jurcan.
You got it, yeah?
There you go. You see, I had to train this one. From the state of the industry, and we're going to talk about the state of the industry. And tell us, Melissa, what are you doing at IMEX this year?
Well, thank you for having me, by the way. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm representing ILEA, which is the International Live Events Association. It was formed in 1987. There are about 2,500 members across 35 countries, and there are 30 chapters. So it's all those that plan and produce events. It's an umbrella organization, the global community for the creative event professional.
Melissa, tell us more about yourself, about your journey towards the events industry.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
You know, I always say I think I was destined for events without even really knowing it, because I have a very creative mother who is very into arts, and my father is very into sports, and we were a family that was celebrating everything. But eventually I worked in sports and opening NFL, National Football League, American football stadiums, really. At that time, it was designing stadiums that were really normally only used for football, but making them so that they could be used 365 days a year for every kind of event, even weddings, if you can believe that. And that went on to be in festivals, and then about the last 10 years in the corporate field, working on the Microsoft campus, and now I oversee events and catering on 16 campuses for Amazon in North America.
Wow, that sounds really, really interesting. There's a lot of questions in the last 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about, how you perceive the modern meetings industry, and I'll tell you what I mean. So we started this podcast in a time of COVID, and we were fully virtual. We did it illegally, right? When we couldn't meet, we met. And then there was a time where the industry was talking about, of course, the meta meetings and the virtual meetings, and we're talking about hybrid meetings even today. How do you see live meetings coming back from COVID? And where are we with live meetings right now?
Good question. If I answer on behalf of ILEA and what I experience in my day-to-day as well, I think for all of us, we can say that going through a pandemic, it radically changed us, right? We never thought that we could survive a work day with not being at work, right? Look at that. That alone was a dramatic change. But what I think for our industry that came out of it was the absolute critical, vital necessity of meeting live in person, because that can't be replicated. And maybe we'll talk later about technology. I'm not afraid of technology. I think technology is there to absolutely empower us, and it's to help us be more productive and to help connect us more. But in terms of talking more specifically about hybrid events, I think the preference now we've settled into, it is a necessity, a human necessity, to be able to be live in person. It's something it just can't be felt by having an online meeting. So from my perspective, we're settling into really we've discovered, or we always have known, right? But everyone else has discovered the value and impact of live events.
It's funny you say that. We just did a research, and we saw that basically the main reason for people to go to and attend events is networking. So is that one of your core findings? Do you do research on live events as such?
We do. Maybe I would use the term community, right? I think these are maybe terms that float around really, but what is the purpose of an event, from my perspective, would be to make people feel something. And when we get together live in person and we're able to, network, but connect, to really have a connection, and that helps us form community. So it might be, we're meeting each other and maybe we're going to do business together. So that's one element to it. But really where I think what the most value and impact is really to have that connection, to collaborate, have a sharing of ideas, maybe sharing in challenges. That's where I really think meetings are at.
There is a lot of boring meetings going on. There is a research that there is around that we spend approximately 6 years on boring events. So how to move from boring events to transformative events, Melissa?
Yeah. It's a good question. I hate to hear that there are so many boring events out there, but that would mean that we really need to look at
from the school on, so
why we're having, we would really have to dive into, what is the purpose of the event and why are we having the event? And I agree that I do think there are events that are on autopilot. Maybe there's organizations that say we do this event every year, so we're doing the event again. Of course, it's upon us as the event producers and planners to really ask those questions from the get-go. What is the purpose of this event, and how we can make events transformative is to go at it from a storytelling and a feeling perspective. How are we going to move people with this event?
So kind of participant-centric, not anymore, brand-centric or whatsoever. Well, another question is, of course, about AI and creativity, of course.
Yes.
Will AI replace our creativity as event planners?
I don't think so. My perspective on it is that it does aid us. It's about empowering us, being more productive. Can an AI produce an event physically? No. Can it aid us? Sure. I think it's not something to be afraid of, because the whole concept behind it is truly to make us more productive so that we can spend more time on creativity.
As usual, our questions go completely off the list. So as you can see, we are already excavating from that one. But we are talking about ILEA as an organization and the mission that you have. And I would love to hear more about what you do. And of course, there's a sub-question of everything that we just mentioned. We are basically talking about event design. Could you address those questions, and how does the ILEA actually tackle that?
So overall, what the organization does is bring people together that are specifically, our niche is in the creative event professional. And I think we talked earlier about that word creative. And I think that gets thrown around a lot, that maybe outside of the industry, some would hear that and think maybe frivolous. Oh, creativity, right? But I think it is a necessity to every event. Because creativity can be truly the design of the event, could be thinking about the event differently, it could be approaching the storytelling of the event in a new and unique way. So our organization is really at the cusp of inspiration, and how can we approach events and continue to build on transformative events.
Well, for all your members, probably the pitching is one of the most important things. Pitching the creative ideas towards the clients and so on. Can you say a little bit about how this works in America, in the United States? We know how it is in Europe, but maybe just your insight about it, about the pitching scene. Do you invite all the agencies available on the market? How it goes with American corporations and so on? So a background about the pitching, because this is really important for our audience, actually.
Okay, well, I think it really is about developing trust. Developing the trust with the potential client to, I don't want to say sell the dream, but really to walk them through what is the story that you are pitching, that attendees are going to go through from start to finish. What is the experience? What is that story? In the end, what are we trying to make people feel? What is that end goal for that client? I think we could talk about brands, and I love that it's really transformed, where a brand is looking for, and I think it's upon us to help the brand in this area to make an organic experience. That maybe it's less about having them come to an event and it feel, forced, or that we're trying to manipulate somebody into feeling something. But more, we as the producers and event designers have worked a lot with that client, talked a lot with them. We know their core values. We know who they are. We know how they want to show up, because we would need to know all of the above to really infuse that into their event. So maybe it sounds like our pitching, it may be a bit different. But I think the core is the same.
Would majority of the clients of your association, so the members of your association, are they other associations? Are they other event organizers, or are they predominantly, I don't know, meeting planners that would work predominantly with corporates? Who are your clients?
Yes. So ILEA is made up of, it's an umbrella organization of all those that plan and produce events. So I'd say probably not exactly 50-50, but perhaps 50% are the real event designers and producers, and the other portion would be the vendor partners that help make that happen, from caterers, decorators, entertainers, you name it. And as we approach an event, and how we think of it is that is the team to collaborate to put the best product forward. So the event designer may be bringing everybody together. We may be having the big picture idea and know the client best, but we're also tapping into all of our collaborators to put that best product forward.
Because we actually have our Ljubljana Talks, there's a lot of students that listen to it in various faculties and universities as a part of understanding the meetings industry and so forth. How would you describe the trends in the live events industry?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe first I will also address, I'd love to hear that there are a lot of students involved, and one of our initiatives on behalf of ILEA has really been to bring more students in. You can't talk about the future of the event industry and not have the true future of the event industry at the table. They are our future staff and teams, our future clients, and our future attendees. And what we've learned from students, college age range, is that they're quite different than us, frankly. I have loved working with them. I work with many newly out of college professionals, and they look at life a lot different than we do. And that's what I love. I like to think that they've really evolved. There may be better versions of us, and that they're very tuned into wellness and what's going on in the world, and really have social responsibility, which I think is an amazing outlook on behalf of a generation. So love having them at the table, and the trends right now that I would describe, customization, of course. I think having breaks in meetings. This to me is one of the biggest, I don't want to say trends, or what excites me even more is over time, we typically, historically, have crammed whatever we possibly can into a meeting or conference. We've taken the mind frame of, we have everybody together, we need to get the absolute most out of everybody there, right? And the challenge with that is that you cannot create and ideate and collaborate when you have so much information coming at you. To truly be creative and to dream, if you will, you need to have space to do that. And so the big trend that I've seen is, and I know we talk a lot about wellness, but it's not only in having that wellness as a part of the event, but to also space the event out and to have that time for organic connections, to have the time for, maybe I attended a couple sessions and now I need to let that sink in for a little while, rather than attend 20 sessions that day and be sort of overloaded, if you will. So that's one of the big trends that I've seen.
Very interesting. I need to ask you something which is completely off the list, actually. Meetings industry, business events, live events. What is the right name, for our industry?
It's a good question. One of the challenges that we face as an industry is truly how we talk about ourselves. And I know that we all know what we do, and I think the world has caught on to the value and impact of what we do. But an area that I find very challenging is how we refine that and what our narrative is exactly. So you kind of hit the nail on the head of, we all do call it something different, frankly. In our association, it is live events, and I think there's work to be done on really how we synthesize and how we go outside of our industry to talk about what it is that we do.
Very good. Last but not least, from my side, sustainability was a buzzword for the last 10 years, I would say. Now it disappeared. There's almost nobody talking about it. Why that happened, Can you explain this? And of course, what is the state of sustainability of events in the United States from your point of view?
Sustainability is vital, and it's I don't believe as an industry we have addressed it. It's a challenge because what we do for a living is temporary events. So it's not easy. It's a hard problem to solve, frankly. And I would agree that usually every decade we come up with something new that is at the forefront, and the sustainability really moving into inclusivity, moving into what we see now, wellness. All of the above, absolutely important because we are evolving as humans in what we need. And to dial back on sustainability, I think we're still perplexed, frankly. There's a lot of strides that we've made, and there's frankly a lot more that we have work to do. But I think it has to be in the fabric of who we are. Because if we do continue to go at the level at which we do, live events won't even matter anymore. So we have a huge amount of opportunity to make an impact on Earth. And how we do that, I don't think we've figured that out yet.
Comparing the perception of sustainability in Europe and the US is different.
Yes.
Where would you say that sustainability hits that mutual point at events or in your organization in terms of what are the focuses for sustainability in the events that your members do?
I'd say the footprint that the event leaves behind, looking at all aspects of the event from a catering perspective. What kind of food are we preparing? Are we looking at plant-based? Are we looking at compostable ware? Are we looking at reusables? Dissecting events, which we do. We do that now, but I guess to your point, I think a lot of it is a box check, and really to have it be at the fabric and core of our event. And I can't wait to hear more about how it's more advanced here in Europe. I have seen
the focus is different.
Okay.
The focus is different. That's why, my next question would be around measuring what do you measure and how do you measure. But I think in Europe, the main idea when you say sustainability is environmental sustainability. From the experience we have, the US has a lot less of environmental, but more of a social kind of a note. Would you agree with that?
I do. I think that's a fair assessment.
So this would be that difference that perhaps divides the same industry, let's call it the meetings industry as a total, but again, talking with the different meanings to the same words and the same. So do you see that there's a very strong sustainability trend or movement within the live events in the US compared, different to one that we would have in the US and in the EU?
With corporations, yes. I think there are many corporations. I happen to work for one of those corporations that I think is really pushing forward and leading the charge, if you will, and many corporations in the US are. When I look at the overall live event industry as a whole, if the client, frankly, it is based on your client. Because in our world, and I'm not sure if it's like that here as well, producing a sustainable event is often, it's harder, right? It's more challenging, and it could also be more expensive. And so you have to have a client that is willing to be on board with that.
One of my last questions is about your presentation today here at the show. Can you tell us more about what you will talk about so that others will know what they missed actually? Yes, a little bit of that.
Yes, well, actually, I spoke yesterday about associations and the way in which partnerships have evolved within the associations coming out of post-pandemic. And the changes that we've seen and kind of where we're going and how critical it is. I think we could look at the event industry as a whole and the world really and say that partnerships are at the core of it. We are stronger together. So while we all know that we're facing challenging times, I like to say opportunity. I think semantics are everything. We are at a time, we're always going to be in times of challenge. Certainly in the United States, we have our challenges that I'm sure everyone is well aware of. But it's also a time of opportunity. So that was what I was had the pleasure of speaking about. And then tomorrow, the founding president of ILEA, so Dr. Joe Goldblatt will be joining us and really talking about the evolution of not only ILEA, but the event industry. He's written over 40 books about events, including the first book on event management. So he'll be joining us, and we'd love to have everybody by for that.
Joe is our guest on Thursday.
Yes, he's actually
Amazing.
coming by.
Looking forward. Since your surname leads us a little bit towards our region, I would say, towards the beautiful Adriatic coastline, how you see the potential of our region, let's say so Southeast Europe or Adriatic region, for the American event organizers, from your point of view?
Well, from my point of view, I think it is somewhat untapped. I think the word and the reputation, phenomenal, beautiful region, just amazing people. Creativity abounds, and I think that is just sort of circulating. In fact, I was talking to somebody yesterday about it, and they had said, I've never been to the region, frankly, and I have it on my list. So I think I know for tourism, the area is rather trending, but I think for meetings and events, it's on the cusp of growing even more.
This is a perfect kind of opening to the closing of this Ljubljana Talks, because we usually finish off with a couple of quick questions.
Oh.
You can answer them quickly or slowly or however you want, but let me ask you, the mountains or the sea?
Ooh, sea for sure. It's in my blood, I think. Ocean.
Movies or books?
Movies. I am a true storyteller. Film is another thing that really moves me. I look at events in the same way that I do film. So for sure, film for me.
Apples or pineapples?
Oh my God, these are challenging. Pineapple. It's, tropical. So.
Melissa, thanks a lot for being our guest.
My
That
pleasure.
was amazing talk, Ljubljana Talk. Once again, thanks. Stay tuned. We are coming back in a few moments. Cool.
Thank you so much. That was so fun.
So huge, these things. So it's like, how do you actually? Oh, yeah.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Ljubljana Talks, recorded live at IMEX 2025 here in Frankfurt. And with Gorazd we have another lovely and very interesting person to talk to. It is Degmo Daar. Now, Degmo, I have to say, in your talks, in the content that you publish, we see diversity, equity, inclusion, all a part of what you do. What is the biggest misconception in the meetings industry and the events industry that we still hold about these terms?
That's such an interesting question. And I think it all boils down to what we see as the vision of what we want to create. I always talk about when we work with DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion, it's not really what I want, but what the audience needs. So it's really about taking that into context of the event industry, like flipping the charts and asking those questions to the audience. What do they need? How can I accommodate for you to make the event or the conference more equitable in that sense, and creating that sense of inclusion and involving the audience into the design of the events that we are creating, actually.
So would you agree that we need to make events responsible towards the environment, society, and participants? Am I right? Can you
100%.
comment that?
Totally. I mean, one thing that I love about IMEX is the responsibility they take in terms of the climate and the footprint that they leave behind. And when we make conscious decisions, we take the responsibility, because each one of us have a responsibility. And we live in a world today where we extract so much from both the planet, from people. I had a talk about redefining success earlier today, and we extract so much that we've lost focus on what is it that we're actually leaving behind us. So taking that responsibility and being accountable for the decisions we make should be one of the driving forces, and always asking ourselves the question, what is it that I'm leaving behind and what footprint am I taking?
My next question is, of course, why meetings and events at all, actually? Because we have a responsibility and we have such a powerful tool in our hands. So why should we use meetings and events for transformation?
At the end of the day, it's about humans connecting with each other and having this space where, just like this, we sit and we have a conversation. I think it's a absolutely incredible way of influencing and making people hear about the work that you want to do. Just having these conversations, having the space to influence. And I mean, what I love about these big ones also, they can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but having different sessions. So you have the exhibition, but you also have spaces for learning. You have spaces for communication. And so it's a lot. I mean, we all saw what happened during the pandemic. We went digital. We missed the human connection.
That's a great point. We see that the human connection, the networking, being the primary reason for meetings and events, and people want to meet live. So there is an element also of human nature in this. Now, when we talk about human nature and needs, we can of course talk about the needs of the attendees, but we can also talk about the needs of the organizers. We touched a little bit on this before, and that is, how do you see these topics touch the mental health and the well-being of the event organizers, alongside, of course, with the attendees?
Yeah, that's such an important aspect to consider. I had a conversation before, earlier today as well, and the World Health Organization has deemed burnout, for instance, as an international, it's been classified as a disease. And we constantly chase these numbers all the time, hitting the green, always climbing, the corporate ladder, being at the events like this and really showcasing the things that I do. But we rarely talk about the human beings behind it. And I think if we flip that chart again and really focus about the well-being of organized. This is super stressful. There's a lot of things happening.
It is, yeah.
But they have it, this, absolutely. But having spaces where you can, wind down. And I know there's actually a space in here as well where you can just hang in a hammock and just relax. And I think we need to bring back and also include the human aspect, and asking ourselves how am I actually feeling, and allowing ourselves to ask the questions to each other as well, how are you doing, can I do anything for you, and what is it, rather than putting the pressure on.
I mean, it's a great point, and it probably has to do with people react to all of this, the noise, the senses, the data, the information that we get at events such as IMEX, that some people just want to wind down. There's an overload. Yeah. Do you see this on a daily basis? Is this accepted in the general society, would you say?
I think it's changing. We see more and more events using the headphones for conversations, really taking the aspect, or the people into the consideration of, exactly as you said, the noise. It can be overwhelming. I love going to these events, but I'm going straight to the hotel afterward and just lie on my bed and without sound, because it can be overwhelming. So I think there's some more conversation around that now. It's more socially accepted to say that this is too much, I need my space. So following
this conversation, what would you take out of this event immediately? What is good at this event in terms of what we are talking about, and what is absolutely necessary to improve, to change?
Wow. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to walk around much. But again, I think it's, I can't really say about this event particularly. But in general, again, I would want to have more spaces of where you can connect with people, to actually have these conversations. The thousands and thousands of people at these events, and it can be challenging. How do I actually connect with the person that I want to talk to? And so maybe more space and room for conversations. Like
a classical Greek agora, I think so. The market where we come together, not in this way, but
exactly.
In a different way.
And it's it's the funny thing is this concept of a workshop methodology called open space. And open space was designed because of this man that designed this concept. He said that the interesting conversations happen by the coffee stand, where it's not facilitated, but you just have these conversations, and in those conversations, that's where the magic happens, and where you find ideas and where you exchange ideas. So having more spaces like that, I would appreciate.
Coming back to the discussion, we are using 6, maybe even 7 senses in our life. How good we are event planners in addressing all these senses.
I think it's it is obviously always challenging, and having organizing all and how do you say accommodating to everyone is obviously going to be challenging. It's not going to work. I am against the concept of designing for the average. That's not what we're going to do. But I always talk about designing for the margins. So the people that necessarily wouldn't be the target audience, but actually designing for the margins. And if you do that, you're actually hitting the majority of the people.
I have 2 questions, of course. But the first one I have is actually kind of applied to what you said before. It's about the best conversations are at the coffee stand or at the coffee machine. We spoke with Melissa Jurcan before, and from the International Live Events Association. And one thing that they are trying to or they see as a trend is bringing in the pauses, the coffee breaks, increasing them, adding to how much how much time they actually give to the participants. What would you say that the events organizers are often doing wrong when trying to be, accessible, or when they're trying to be open and do inclusion, to put it this way? What do they get wrong?
So you have all of these stages where you present. You have the beautiful slides, and you share your message with the audience sitting and listening to you. What I think is missing in that concept is, again, space for questions, space for conversation. I mean, just because I'm on stage and sharing doesn't mean that I'm the truth. We all have different perspectives. We all have different perceptions. I'm explaining things out of my personal experience and my professionalism in what I do and what I've studied and years of experience. But I would love to have interactive elements on stage as well. So obviously I can include the audience, but it would be really nice to move away from stage and to maybe have a round table talk that is open. And again, I keep coming back to conversation, how important it is to have a dialogue. And that's when we stand by the coffee and chat, basically. So that's something that I encourage event planners to also have in mind. So open up for the conversation between the speaker and the audience.
Well, obvious question is, of course, AI. We always ask this. Can AI help us to improve, to be better, our event planners or event designers, if I can say so? What is your opinion about that?
AI, the buzzword of 2020. Definitely. I don't think that we should be afraid of using AI. But we should also be critical against it and with it, not see it as the truth. AI is built on, still human beings have designed the AI tool, and it's based on assumptions and the data that you put in. So I was actually literally having a conversation just before we started this recording. And what's frightening today is not the use of AI, but how AI is built in sense of the biases. And if we don't question, or if we are not critical in our thinking when we use AI, that could actually produce more harm.
So we should really start a dialogue with AI, am I right?
We should start a dialogue with AI.
Of course, yeah. Also,
so we should diversify the people that are building these tools to make sure that we have different perspectives when we design it.
Crazy question. What would be your dream event to organize? If you have unlimited budget, let's say so.
Wow. That's a really good question. I love food, so I would do like a food event where everyone gets food. It's like a few years ago, it's just a funny thing. Oprah Winfrey gave away cars to the audience. So she was like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. So I would say, you get food, everyone gets food. And I think that's the conversation starter. So bringing in different cultures also. I would do an event with food and culture.
Very interesting. Degmo, you said something before that is really resonating. You said engage the speaker and the audience. How would you do that? Because we still see the typical panel, 3 people, and by the end of all the sessions, there's no more time left, and they say, "Oh, no time for questions," and people leave.
Again, as I mentioned, flipping who holds the power. So the audience are there for a reason, right? They're interested in the talks. So maybe the panel conversation should not be based on what the moderator, what question they design, but rather have, for instance, a survey, sending it out to people that are interested in these talks. Like, what would you want to hear? What questions do you have? And sort of changing that So for now, for instance, having this conversation, one thing could also be reaching out to the audience saying, what would you want to ask Degmo? And you can include it in the conversation.
Sure, we have the comments on YouTube. Everybody's welcome to comment there. It is true that, for instance, with Gorazd, we've done certain of Ljubljana Talks so that we would have one and then we did another one and so on. So there are questions that resonate and pop up.
Amazing.
Now, there's of course an elephant in the room. We're talking about DEI. What is the status of DEI right now in the world?
It's under attack. I mean, there's a lot of things happening. We see many companies pulling back on their DEI work. It's become it's been politicized. And I don't think that, or I think it's worrying when we see DEI, not we, but many people and many big brands see DEI as a threat. The numbers are out there. We know that if we diversify our workforce, we will be more innovative. We will be more resilient towards crisis. We will be more efficient if we work together. And we also see if we have exclusion, if we don't focus on inclusion in our teams, creating a culture where our people that we work with feel good, that they can be proud of the work they do, that there's a culture of support, they will burn out. They will leave the company. It will cost the company a lot because we know that high recruitment processes are expensive. So it's really, I think it's suicide if you don't actually include DEI in the work that you do. And it's, to be honest, it all comes back to the responsibility we have. Like, why would we not want to have inclusion in our company? Why wouldn't we want to have diversity? People from different cultures, from different backgrounds, who decide and who said that this atypical person is the norm?
Okay.
So I think it's but it is under attack. It's been a lot of conversation in media the last couple of months. Due to a certain person across the ocean.
do you see that also spill into other countries, or do you think it's just one?
No, 100%. It's affecting the whole international community, and you see that companies are afraid. Like we see what's happening in the U.S. Organizations, universities, companies have been forced to remove diversity, remove inclusion, remove so many words in their strategies and in the way they work, and obviously that affects other companies and other cultures and other countries as well. I see that in Sweden. And we have investments that is international, obviously. So it's really affecting the entire world. We see organizations that have had to pause their humanitarian work, for instance. So it's an incredibly negative trend, and there's a worry, it's fear out there. But I also think that we shouldn't be scared about actually raising our voices. This work has always existed. It has just had different definitions over the last 100 years. It was called something in the early 90s. It was called something else in the mid 1900s, and it was called DEI. As we know it, it's just the last couple of years that is called DEI. So I think it's just going to be a shift.
Amazing discussion, I need to say so. We are coming to the end of this Ljubljana Talks, so my last question is, yes, can you wrap up the future of these events, business or industry, or however we call it, in just 3 words? A very complicated task. Just 3 words to define the future of our industry.
I would say people, connection, and equity.
And last but not least, we are closing the discussion with 5 questions to you. So the first one is, of course, very simple one. Movies or books?
Movies or
books?
Oh, books.
Can you explain this a little bit?
I love reading. I'm a book nerd. I've always read, so I always listen to one audiobook and I read one book. So yeah, that's my go-to.
Flying or diving?
I'm afraid of deep water, so I'm gonna say flying.
Left or right side of the brain?
Ooh, yeah, I would say a combination. So the creative and the analytic one. Yeah.
Degmo, thank you so much for taking your time and for a really, really interesting and thought-provoking conversation. I think we both really enjoyed this. Thank you for coming to IMEX. Thank you for coming to Ljubljana Talks, and keep posted for more Ljubljana Talks coming soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.